The Masonic lodges were in Britain anyway, and these were the first formed lodges in the world. They were formed in 1717, and this was when 4 London lodges came together at St Paul's Churchyard in London at the Goose and the Gridiron Tavern. It must have been a pub, tavern. Tavern's the old name for a pub. And this is on the 24th of June. And they formed the first Grand Lodge. This was in the year 1717. So 2017 was obviously their 300-year celebration, anniversary, whatever you call it. And let's continue. So I'm going to skip through my notes. You know, when you look into Freemasonry, it's very much a brotherhood. There's no women allowed. They also, I mean, when you really dive into it, they seem to discount the divine feminine, and this has been lost in the world, on the globe, on our planet. And really, I think the secret power to what we all need to find out with the true powers that we hold as human beings is the divine. I believe the divine feminine is contained in this, and it's something when you look into it, which I've been doing. When you're looking into the Knights Templars, the Knights Templar, and also the Knights of Malta. Now, the Knights Templar and the Knights of Malta, the Knights of Malta were also known as the Knights Hospitalier. Sorry. But when you look, I've looked into it, and the Knights of Malta had quite a few run-ins with the Knights Templar. Now, they did have dealings with each other. I can actually read you an account. This is from the Lepanto Institute, and I'm going to read it word for word because it's a really, really interesting article. And we'll start off with this, and then we will dive into the Mason side of it, the Masonic order, the Masonic conspiracy. So let's get into this. So the article from the Lepanto Institute, I presume, is Italian, maybe British as well. The article is by Michael Hitchborn, 2017, 2nd of July, or the 7th of February. I'm not sure if it's American or not. So let's go. Pope Francis, Freemasonry, and the Knights of Malta. The mysterious recent events surrounding the sovereign military order of Malta took a strange and unexpected twist in the beginning of January, when, in the middle of a bitter feud over the suspension of one of its members, Pope Francis allegedly tossed mention of Freemasons in the mix. As strange as it may seem, there appears to be some historical context that might shed light on the situation. According to a January 7th article in the National Catholic Register, written by the stalwart Edward Penton on November 10th, Cardinal Burke met with Pope Francis, who made it clear to Cardinal Burke that he wanted Freemasonry cleaned out from the order, and he demanded appropriate action. In all news reports on this matter, this is the primary source for any mention of Freemasonry with regard to the Sovereign Order of Malta. Now that's important. This is the only link I have personally found between the Knights of Malta and Freemasonry. Knights Templars have a lot more to do with them. But let's continue. It was a very strange and seemingly out of place comment. However, there is some historical significance to consider, and remember, we are examining Freemasonry in this context only because Pope Francis is said to have mentioned it. A little over 700 years ago, there was a rather tense rivalry between the Knights Templar and the Knights Hospitalier, currently known as the Knights of Malta. That was their original name before it was Knights of Malta. Some accounts of the rivalry suggested that the two knightly orders even came to blows while stationed together in Palestine. Now that's interesting because there was a feud between the Knights of Malta and the Knights Templar, which is total topic on its own. So let's continue again. In the very early 1300s, King Philip IV of France found himself steeped in debt to the Knights Templar. At that time, the Templars reportedly had assumed a considerable amount of wealth and were in a position to make financial loans through their holdings because King Philip owed the Templars large amounts of money and couldn't pay. He began to circulate rumours unjustly and falsely accusing them of all sorts of abominations such as heresy and sodomy. In 1312, under pressure from King Philip, Pope Clement V issued papal bull Vox in Excelsior, formally dissolving the Knights Templar. Shortly thereafter, he issued the bull Ad Providam, which transferred the majority of the Templars' assets over to the Knights Hospitalier, which is the Knights of Malta. So that's interesting because from my own research, when you look into the Knights Templar, there's a famous church in Portugal, and there's an area of Portugal where the Knights Templar took refuge. They settled as such after the Crusades, and this actually, I'll pop a bit of the video in here. I've got it saved actually in my records, so I will show you. I will include a video in this actually.
Nós estamos na Igreja de Santa Maria do Olival, em Tomar, uma igreja gótica do século XIII. Podemos dizer que, em termos simbólicos, estamos no lugar mais importante dos Templários em Portugal. Podemos relacionar com o Monte das Oliveiras de Jerusalém, que ainda hoje é um território sagrado. Este local tornou-se o local da inspiração dos ancestrais, onde estavam os mestres, e com certeza que seria um local também onde faziam não só rituais fúnebres, mas também talvez rituais iniciáticos dos Templários. A estrela 5 pontas sempre teve uma relação com essa verticalização do ser humano. Na minha interpretação, simboliza o regressus ad utrum, ou seja, é a ideia que o cavaleiro na sua iniciação regressa ao útero da terra para renascer espiritualmente. Fora desta igreja, à esquerda, temos um topo do que poderia ter sido uma cisterna. Tomarenses disseram que uma vez, queimando pneus lá, o fumo veio sair aqui. Portanto, é natural que haja um corredor que foi tapado, tanto quanto eu sei, no século XX. Além de que há aqui ligação entre o Castelo de Tomar, a Igreja de Santa Maria do Olival.
Nós sabemos que onde houve templários havia túneis. Século XII, 1190, quando da segunda invasão árabe o Almansor vem ocupar todo o território português até chegar a Tomar. Em Tomar é travado por Gualdim Pais e ele desce por um dos túneis do castelo e vem sair exatamente aqui. Se nós olharmos para aqui, mais do que uma fonte, o que nós vemos é uma homenagem ao sagrado feminino. E isso, no espírito templário, também é importante, porque a mulher é mãe, é terra, e é da terra, tal como da mulher, que nasce a vida.
Fica para o enigma que é de onde veio a certeza do Lepanto Henrique. Tomar torna-se o centro eclesiástico de todas as igrejas cristãs que se vão edificando ao Leimar, e a igreja sede de todas essas igrejas era Santa Maria do Olival. Daí que este lugar é importante não só para a história portuguesa, mas para a história dos descobrimentos, que teve um impacto mundial. Os templários penetraram profundamente no imaginário de Tomar, até aos nossos dias.
This brief historical sketch sets the stage for Freemasonry's entrance on the scene. The Freemasons claim illegitimately the Knights Templar as part of their lineage. The truth is, after the Knights Templar were dissolved, the order ceased to exist. It was finished. There was no continuation of the order after Clement V dissolved it in 1312. So, be that as it may, the Freemasons nonetheless claim the Knights Templar as their own. Interesting. Regardless of whether or not the Templars continued to exist in secret, later to come back in the form of Freemasonry is immaterial. What is important to understand here is that because the Freemasons claim the Templars as part of their lineage, they have also adopted the legendary emotional baggage associated with the betrayal of the order. 33-degree Freemason Albert Mackey wrote Encyclopedia of Freemasonry and its Kindred Sciences in 1873. In his entry on the Knights of Malta, Mackey wrote, the rival brotherhood of the Templars was abolished by a pope and a king of France, and what of its revenues and possessions was saved from the spoliation of its enemies was transferred to the Hospitaliers. There had always existed a bitter rivalry between the two orders, the Templars and the Hospitaliers, marked by unhappy contentions, which on some occasions, while both were in Palestine, amounted to actual strife. Toward the Knights of St. John, the Templars had never felt nor expressed a very kindly feeling, and now this acceptance of an unjust appropriation of their goods in the hour of their disaster, keenly added to the sentiment of ill will and the unhappy children of de Millay, as they passed away from the theatre of knighthood, left behind them the bitterest imprecations of the disciples of the hospital. The Freemasons, though the legend of its association with the Knights Templar, hold the Knights of Malta in contempt. This feeling of bitterness and anger is even agitated and ritualized in one of the higher degrees of Freemasonry. The 30th degree of Freemasonry is called a degree of the Knights Kadosh, which translates from Hebrew to mean holy or consecrated. Beg your pardon. This degree is directly associated with the Knights Templar. So the Mason who enters into the 30th degree is indeed considered by the secret society to be a Knight Templar. Interesting. Mackay explains in the Masonic Encyclopedia that the Kadoshas, as representatives of the Templars, adopt the Boisant as their standard. The Boisant is the black and white banner of the Knights Templar. We must be clear here. We are only bringing up Freemasonry and their beliefs because Pope Francis allegedly did, and we are attempting to make sense of what this could mean. In no way are we establishing the existence of a Masonic conspiracy with regard to recent events surrounding the Knights of Malta, but because it was brought up, it must be examined as a piece of the overall puzzle as it relates to the case at hand. The entire Masonic initiation rite for the Knights Kadosh is a rite of vengeance for the dissolution of the Knights Templar and the death of the Grand Master, even to the point of stabbing a skull wearing a papal tiara representing Pope Clement V, who disbanded the Knights Templar in the 14th, 13th century, and a skull wearing crown representing King Philip. So they essentially, this ritual, I can see the picture in front of me, and they are stabbing the skulls while wearing a papal tiara representing Pope Clement V and a skull wearing a crown representing King Philip of France. According to the complete ritual of the ancient and accepted Scottish rite, the Grand Master explains the mysteries of the skulls to the candidate. Here's what he says. In almost all of the rituals of this degree, nothing but vengeance is spoken of. But this is an allegory without meaning, for this degree contains all the philosophy of our sublime institution, which is nothing more, nothing less than the actual result of our 3% Grand Master's philosophy, and philosophy discountenances vengeance. Virtue alone and good examples, patience in energy in opposing evil can ensure triumphs. In this, no more than in the preceding degrees, have we to avenge the death of Hiram Abif. Just a side note, in brackets, Hiram Abif is a mythical hero in Freemasonry introduced in the lowest degrees, close brackets. Or even the slaughter of the Knights Templar and the murder of the Grand Master, and if the ceremonies of this degree recall to our mind the catastrophe resulting in the overthrow of an illustrious order, it is true, nevertheless, that the commemoration of the bloody tragedy of the 11th day of March 13th, 14, has not. It is impossible to say, without direct and confirmed evidence, in what manner Freemasonry is at work with regard to the Knights of Malta. What we can say is that Pope Francis allegedly mentioned Freemasonry with regard to the Knights of Malta. Number 2, Freemasonry claims a connection to the Knights Templar, whose assets were transferred to the Knights of Malta in 1312. The Freemasons have an entire initiation ceremony dedicated to revenge for the destruction of the Templars. Whatever the case, what we can say for sure is that there is much more to this story than is being reported. Full stop. What a great article. this is, yeah, it's truly a great article. I will post the link to the article below in the description, and I hope you really enjoyed this episode. I find it fascinating. The Knights of Malta, which I believe now, even after reading this and discovering this article a couple of days ago, I am thinking that the Knights of Malta have a big link to the Jesuits and the Grey Pope and the Black Pope. Prove me wrong, in the words of Isaac Cappy. But anyway, guys, yeah, I mean, it's really fascinating when you really dig into the Knights Templar also. So really, the figurehead of the Knights Templar, and this is renowned within the Masonic order as well a little bit, but Jacques de Molay, he was born in 1240 and he died in 1314, not long after this. He was burned on a stake, and his death acquiesced on Friday the 13th, which is where the cursed Friday the 13th comes from. So that's an interesting little thing. But Jacques de Molay was revered by his brothers, his other knights of the realm, the Knights Templar. He was quite he was praised a lot. So interesting subject to Google or DuckDuckGo, as I don't use Google anymore. So yeah, I hope you really enjoyed that, guys. Please like and share the video, and yeah, eyes open, no fear. Ciao for now.